um, a record of this or something we can refer back to. But again, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Street Team Advocate Training. My name is Maggie Sherwinski, and this is my colleague, Julia Gerasimenko, who the two of us will be leading the training tonight. So let's get to the agenda. So we're gonna start off giving you a bit of an overview about our organization, the Active Transportation Alliance, and also get to know each other a little bit more. And then talk through just everyday advocacy ideas, day-to-day activities all of you, all of us can be doing to continue to advance walking, biking, and transit in our own communities. And then we're going to spend a majority of the time plugging into our priority advocacy campaigns, one called Safe Streets for All, one called Transit That Works. And then we'll talk through how you can get involved and next steps. And throughout the training, we're going to be doing some breakout groups, as well as we're going to be using Mentimeter for some live polling. So if you have a phone or a browser, we'll be asking you to get that out so we can see some of your thoughts up on the screen. So just a caveat that, so today's training, so Julie and I, when we put this together, there was so much we wanted to tell you, but we realized we needed a 10-hour training or more. So this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And we are planning on offering additional deep dive trainings on a variety of the topics that we're going over today, based on our campaign work and your interest level. We will also be sharing all of the slides. We'll share a lot of resources and links. So anything that we mentioned tonight, you don't need to feel like you need to jot it all down. We'll be sending a follow-up email. But again, this is just a surface level overview tonight. And just some guidelines and housekeeping. So feel free to use the chat box to ask questions at any time while we're presenting, and we'll get to those as we can. You can also feel free to use the raised hand feature to ask a question if you have something to clarify, if you prefer. And then please keep yourself muted during the presentation if you're able. And finally, we want to keep tonight positive, so respect the discussion, the facilitators, one another, and assume good intentions. So with that, wanted to go over our goals for tonight. So, we're stronger together, and we've started this street team training to bring together people like you who are passionate about transportation. And we want to try to be growing the movement together for better walking, biking, and transit in our region and our state. And we are going to take some time to go over in more detail our key campaigns so that you have increased awareness of what we're working on and how you can plug into those campaigns. And then we want you to leave with some tangible ways that you can have an impact in your own community as well as across the state. And we want to make sure you're meeting others who are also passionate about active transportation. We want to create a community here, and we've done so far this year 5 of these trainings. This is our 6th training, and so I think by tonight we'll be approaching 90 street team advocates. So it's a growing community, and we hope that you'll be involved in the future so you can get to know more people who are like-minded. And with that, I'll pass it over to Julia to talk a bit more about the Active Transportation Alliance, and so we can get to know all of you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maggie. And it's nice to see some familiar faces on here, some new faces. And we're excited to have everyone get to know each other. Like Maggie said, we want this to be interactive as well. And we're guessing that, you know a little bit about us as an organization, since you all found yourselves here tonight, but we'll just kind of provide a baseline and more of a foundational kind of overview of how we operate. So that's what we'll do in this section here. So we'd love to have everyone share in the chat to get things started, their name and pronouns. What community are you dialing in from, either your neighborhood or your municipality? It's exciting to see folks from around the region on these calls, and then describing your community in one word. So I'll go ahead and model that both verbally, and then I'll drop it in the chat. But my name's Julia Gerasimenko. Like Maggie said, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm calling in from Albany Park in Chicago. And I would use the word river to describe my neighborhood. So go ahead, we'll kind of take a moment and wait for folks to dial in. All right, we've got a couple Chicagoans on the call, some North Siders. We've got Lakeside for Rogers Park, absolutely. Colorful for Ukrainian Village, and diverse for Uptown. Chris, I like the tasty description for the Midway area, absolutely. We have Isabel dialing in from Waukegan, also describing it as diverse for sure. Heather from Logan Square, the boulevards there are pretty special. And Rachel from River North, the high rises. A couple more folks from the suburbs, Schaumburg Libraries, I love that. And Ralph from Palatine Cooperative, very cool. These are very unique descriptors. Streamwood, diverse, hi Mikey. Katie from Logan Square, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing yourselves. There'll be plenty more time to get off mute and get to know one another. So thanks for kind of playing along there. So now I'll go ahead and get started talking a little bit more about the Active Transportation Alliance. So our mission is to advocate for walking, biking, and public transit to create healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities. So we were actually founded in 1985 as the Chicagoland Bicycle Federation. And then about 15 years ago, we rebranded and changed our mission to encompass other modes of active transportation like walking and public transit to really reflect the reality that most of us don't just get around in one way, right? We're all typically fairly multimodal. So jumped ahead. So what does that look like, that mission, when, you know, we play that out in the world? What is the world we are trying to create? So we want to see a world with amazing transit that connects people with jobs, services, and businesses. We also want to see a world where riding a bike is safe and easy for all ages and abilities, regardless of where you live. And we want to see walkable communities where people can stay active as they get around and also stay safe, right? And the kind of principles that guide our work are as follows. So every day when we're showing up, these are kind of the principles, the values that help shape, you know, what priorities we choose to take on, the kind of strategy behind our advocacy, and so on. So first of all, we believe mobility equity is a fundamental right. So what that means is we think that everyone should have an equal choice to get around without undue duress due to safety concerns, financial concerns, their racial status, or identity. So everyone should have the choice to freely get around in whatever way they prefer. And that is what mobility equity looks like. We also prioritize upstream approaches. So that means that we're trying to pass kind of broad policy solutions rather than trying to solve, you know, each and every pothole by pothole. We're working to kind of fix systemic issues that keep our transportation options limited as they exist now. We also really believe and operate in partnership. We believe in the power of partnerships. And so we're lucky to live in a region that's really like remarkably well organized and connected. And you know, we like to partner with groups that already have established trust and relationships in their communities, and make the most of kind of banding together to show that it's not just, you know, one type of person who is advocating for walking, biking, and transit, but really this is an issue that impacts everyone. And so we need to kind of stand together to win the change we seek. And then we also use both internal and external strategies. So that looks like partnering and building positive relationships with government officials, agency officials, in order to, you know, maintain that direct line of communication, but also applying external pressure and using external strategies to hold them accountable as well, with that kind of community power that we were referring to previously. So we're also a membership-based organization. We have over 20,000 members and supporters. And you too can become a member if you aren't already. For the low cost of $35, you get to support all our work as a nonprofit organization, and get perks like discounts on our iconic events like Bike the Drive, and also sometimes some discounts at various bike shops as well. So you can find out more about that on our website. But yeah, we have some great events throughout the year, like our annual member party, which is in the wintertime, Bike the Drive on Labor Day weekend, Chicago Bike Month, which is coming up in April, the Bike to Work Challenge we'll talk more about, and then our soon to be had Movers and Shakers Ball. So we're going to go ahead and allow you all the opportunity to connect with one another. You've heard a bit from Maggie and I already. So we're going to send you into breakout rooms, and Maggie will kind of help talk through these questions.
All right, so some questions to check in with your fellow breakout mates about are: one, how do you usually get around on a daily basis? And would you prefer other options? Because it looks like, you know, we're all located in very different communities around the region. So, you know, share your own personal story with each other. And what made you want to be here today? Why did you want to become a street team advocate? So we'll give you all 3 minutes to chat with those in your breakout group. We'll put you in groups of 3 or 4. And just a tip that these types of questions, especially like, how did you get here today? That can be a really great conversation starter when you're out and about, and a great way to really talk about the street team and, you know, why you care about walking, biking, or transit. So with that, Julia will get us into our breakout rooms, and after, I guess you'll get a warning when breakout rooms will close within 60 seconds or 1 minute. So just continue chatting until the end of that time, and you'll automatically come back to the large group.
Alrighty, here we go.
All right, well, I hope you got to meet a few new folks, and you'll get to meet others in the room or in the session a little later. But now we wanted to get started with Mentimeter. So again, some live polling if you've never used this before. So if you can either grab your phone, you can scan that QR code, or you can go to a new browser on your computer, type in menti.com. And then there is a code 89503665 that will bring you to, you should see a picture of a map. And on that map, it's you can take a pin and mark where you're from. And then you can submit a vote. So we have a few questions that we'll bring up right now. And if you can, we'll be using Menti later on as well. So keep it open in your browser. So let me, I'll go to Menti, if I can find it. 1 second, there we go. All right, so it looks like people have managed to get there. If you're like, where am I going. It's up here on the top, menti.com, and there's the code 89503665.
And
So it
I
looks like,
dropped it in the chat as well.
oh, nice. Thanks, Julia. And it looks like we've got a scattering of attendees in the Chicago as well as Cook County, Lake County. Great. All right, well, let's go to the next question. So this is kind of what you discussed perhaps in your breakout groups, but how do you typically reach a local destination? And feel free to select all that apply. Just curious collectively, how are we getting around? So let's see what looks like. A lot of people are walking, rolling, biking.
Oh, we have one scooter too. That's
Oh,
fun.
wow.
3, 4, 5, 6. Now you're right.
Couple ride hail.
Oh, and if you can, please mute yourself. If I think we hear a little bit of background noise right now. But wow, it looks like walking and biking are pretty common, but really this group is multimodal, which is not surprising. You're using all of your options, and we all live in different places too with different access and needs, and we can see that kind of visually here. So let's bring us to the next question. So we're curious. So in 1 or 2 words, and you can submit multiple times, why is walking, biking, rolling, transit important to you? So if you close your eyes and just envision a world that you would love to live in, where all of the options you dream of using are at your fingertips, like what would that look like to you? So just throw out some adjectives, and again, feel free to add as many as you want, and look at, oh, community's getting big, so we're building a word cloud here. But these are already some great words: freedom, sustainability, accessibility, beautification.
Ooh, that's a new one. We haven't seen that one before.
Yeah. Faster than driving. Yeah, totally. Eco-friendly.
We have Jim and Rita in the chat saying environment too.
Oh, nice. Human scale. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Designing places for people.
Yes. Density too.
Activity. Fresh air. Yes. Enjoyable. Great. Quiet. But yeah, it looks like community, health, sustainability, freedom, those are really standing out. Environment, connection. But we'll share this word cloud with you all afterwards, so you can keep this with you to remind yourself why this is so important. Like these are wonderful things that we can be bringing to our region, to our state, to your own local community. And maybe something to share with your elected officials or your local municipal staff. But let's bring us back to the PowerPoint. So thanks for trying out Menti with us. And again, keep that open, and we have a few more questions a little later on. And now I'll pass it back to Julia to talk about everyday advocacy.
Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so before we dive into our specific campaigns and kind of policy objectives that we're focusing on this year, we wanted to go over some everyday advocacy activities that you all can be taking on. And honestly, some of you may already be doing some of these things too. So we'll be curious to hear from some of you what resonates or what additional ideas you have. So first and foremost, we want to encourage folks to be reporting any issues they themselves experience while walking, biking, and taking transit throughout the region. So in the city of Chicago, we actually have a 311 app where you can report if, say, a bike lane is flooded or a bus shelter has been damaged. things like that. And that actually really does help the city and municipal staff in terms of documenting and collecting data on where and when these issues arise, as well as helping them prioritize in the future around things like the budget as well. But if you're in the rest of the region, dialing 311 works just as well. And same goes for that. But there's also feedback channels for our regional transit system too. So CTA, Metra, and PACE all have contact forms easily available on their homepage websites that you can pull up. Let's say, you're waiting for a Metra and it's delayed, or a lights out or something like that. It's a great way to kind of just take initiative, take that leadership step, and communicate that to them. But also, it's not just about reporting the things that are going wrong. It can also be about reporting things going well, and kind of giving that feedback to, like, hey, thanks, Pulse. This new PACE Pulse route is just doing great. And that's actually kind of feedback that they can take and share with elected officials as well. So we encourage you to be doing that, as well as showing up to any community event, whether it's a local bike ride, a walk organized by your church or synagogue, a political rally, or just a community meeting. It can be really powerful to show up having taken, a bike or a bus or a train there, or walking there, and connecting with folks around these issues as well, and just building more relationships with your community, kind of building that broader movement and collective. We also want to encourage you to get to know your elected officials in a variety of ways. So you can, of course, be encouraging and asking them to prioritize solutions and policies for transportation issues, but also offering your support to be a resource and an expert around these issues. Oh, sorry, just what's the word? Made the tab go down for some reason. You all disappeared, but you're back. Okay. So yes. And one thing I failed to mention, sorry, with the reporting issues, we've also heard directly from transit agency staff that those comments really do get through to them, and they really do follow up and use that feedback. So don't think it's necessarily going into a black hole. It isn't. There are people working on these things. But anyways, back to getting to know your elected officials. We'll talk about a variety of ways of how to do that, and we'll offer deep dive trainings too, around how you can further build that kind of skill and muscle and comfort level by engaging with them. But I'm kind of curious to see a raise of hands. Anybody in tonight's group who already has experienced meeting with elected officials or interacting with them? All right, I see one hand. Ralph. Anyone else? All right, we're getting a thumbs up from Alyssa, Bianca. That's great. Kate, anybody want to come off mute and share what that experience has been like?
I can share.
Sure, thanks, Bianca.
So in my village, we do it's I guess quarterly, but we have coffee with the board. And so I've talked to our transportation department staff and advocated for like safer bike lanes, more accessible transportation alternatives. And right now I'm actually going to be a part of a committee where we discuss or kind of develop I believe it's like a 5-year transportation plan. But yeah, as a community member, my role would be very limited. But yeah, so but I do talk to my I guess local officials too about that.
That's great. And it's fantastic you were able to learn about this kind of coffee hour that they offer, that's a great way to connect with them just as people too. It's important to remember elected officials are just people, and they can't have eyes and ears everywhere, right? Or be experts on every issue. So connecting with them on a personal level like that, and sharing your experience and insight, Bianca, from kind of your own transportation expertise seems really valuable. That's great you're on that committee too.
Thank you.
And Ralph, I see you coming off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wear a couple hats. One, I'm the biking columnist for the Daily Herald for the last 3.5 years. And last summer there was I can't remember the name of the exact name of the committee, but it's a Northwest Community Suburban Transportation Group. And they had a meeting out in Hoffman Estates, and they wanted people to experience some of the trails in the area. And I had just written a 3-part column about the new mountain biking trail out in the local forest preserve. So at the end of the lunch, they had me present the sort of basically a synopsis of the building of that trail. And then as a Bike Palatine community or club member, just this past Monday, the president and I met with the chief engineer for the village about some things that are going on in the village, and thanking them for a recent connection that is almost completely finished now between one of our major arterials and another forest preserve in the area. So they do appreciate knowing, that, like you said, Julia, that they do appreciate knowing when they've done something well.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Sometimes we've heard the phrase, what is it? Praise loudly, scold quietly, or something like that. But I just wanted to flag, thank you so much, Ralph, for sharing all those examples. And if you all haven't checked out any of Ralph's writing, please do on the Daily Herald. Some really great coverage over the years. I wanted to flag there's 2 sort of comments, questions in the chat. So Brad said, can you talk more about CTA feedback channels? I'd love an easy way to let CTA know about broken equipment, problems on trains, etc., but I can't find an easy way to do that. Other transit agencies have the ability to text complaints to the agency in real time, but we don't have that. So I will, once I have a moment, I will drop the link to the CTA feedback form in the chat. And then, yeah, it's a great point that other agencies have that text channel. And we've actually heard from CTA leadership, they're actively exploring that option this year. So that may be coming, which we think would be great. So thanks for those comments. And then Bianca said, so sad I missed that. It's right by me. I think, Ralph, that was in reference to one of the trails you were referring to. Is that right, Bianca? But that's why we are creating this space for connection, right? So we can all keep one another informed too about what's happening. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and keep sharing some ideas around ways that you all can feel empowered to make an impact just as you go about your daily lives. So just talking to your networks, your people in your community, your friends, your family, listening to their transportation concerns and building connections. We like to say that everyone is a transportation expert because you all are getting around from point A to point B every day, right? And so just by asking those questions and starting those conversations, it can be really powerful. We also want to encourage you all to be sharing your input on state, regional, and local projects and plans. So, for example, the Illinois Department of Transportation, they've been having this active transportation planning process, or the Redefine the Drive North DeSable Lakeshore Drive project in Chicago. That has been going on for many years at this point, but as these different levels of government have these opportunities for community engagement, we like to flag that and share that out on our social media through email, and of course we'll share with you all. But also, again, we're just human too. If we might miss something, so we also really encourage you all to be sharing with us, hey, I haven't seen ATA flag this. Maybe I can share this out to the Street Team Advocate Network. And then I also wanted to flag for folks in Chicago, there's a really great opportunity for impacting infrastructure spending in your ward as a constituent. So each of the 50 wards gets a bucket of, I believe it's 1.3 or 1.7 million at this point per year to invest in transportation in that ward. And so some wards have what's called a participatory budgeting process where they actively solicit project ideas from community members, and you're able to vote on it. Everyone in the ward, regardless of their citizenship status, actually 14 and older, are able to participate and vote in that. But not every ward has that. And so some wards, you know, you'll be able to find on the alderman's website a simple form you can fill out for input. Or you can organize your neighbors and request a meeting with the alderman around things like protected bike lane or a new bench or anything to do with infrastructure, really, because oftentimes that money goes directly to repaving streets. And so that's one opportunity we wanted to flag. And don't worry, all the participatory budgeting, all of this good stuff will be in the resources we send out afterwards as well. And then again, just encouraging folks to attend public meetings. We also try to share those opportunities out and encourage you all to flag them for us as well, whether it's in your neighborhood, your ward, or your village board, or what have you. Oh, and I forgot that we added this slide in. So there's also this great resource called WardWise, where you can actually see how your alderperson has spent those transportation dollars, the menu money over the years. And otherwise, there's the PB link right there. Again, we'll send that all up in follow-up, or just checking out their website too. Oops. But I just want to pause quickly and ask, you know, these are just some of the ideas we've gathered to show that, you know, it's possible for you all to kind of incorporate this into your day-to-day, and it does make an impact when you do these things. But I'm curious, what other ideas or suggestions do you have for everyday advocacy actions folks can be taking? Again, feel free to come off mute or drop it in the chat if that's easier. Are any of these suggestions things that you all have already been doing, or any that you're excited about trying out? Yeah, Brad, go ahead.
Hi, yeah. So I have done participatory budgeting in my ward, and whenever it comes around, I always tell everybody in my building and my husband and all of my friends to you know, write to the alderman and, you know, or fill out the form, because you can really affect the stuff that's built right around your house. And then the other thing, I've used 311 a lot. I've used the app a lot for reporting issues. So those are two things that I've done before.
That's fantastic. And have there been any projects that you've been excited about that got passed?
You know, I don't know, because I didn't know about this website that you could follow up and see what actually happens. Like, it's hard to know whether the thing that you suggest actually occurred. I have gotten emails back saying, like, we'll look into that or whatever. But I'm excited to try to see, like, what has actually happened in my ward.
Yeah, that's a great point that, you know, these types of transportation projects, they tend to take a long time, right? And we'll get into that a little bit more as to why that is. But some of the policy changes we seek kind of try to make the process more accessible, right, for community input, but also be just like more transparent in general, because yeah, it can be hard to know if something's happening until you literally see the shovel in the ground, and then it's much too late to impact it, right? And Brad, I'm just curious, what ward are you in?
46 in
Great.
Uptown.
Very good, very good, awesome. All right. Anybody else want to share? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move on. But before, we'll leave you with a little inspiration that you are all superheroes. We want you to feel empowered to take on all these ways to make an impact in your community. We really can't do it without you. It takes, the collective and a movement. And so don't underestimate the impact you can have by taking even one small step to riding a bike to an event or emailing your elected official. You never know the impact it'll have. So, oh, thanks for flagging the proper URL. We will update that. Okay. So we want to get started diving into our campaigns now. Oops. So I'll hand it over to Maggie.
All right, thanks, Julia. So, so we have 3 priority campaigns this year that we are going to do kind of focus some time on. We're going to focus most of our time on the first 2 here. So the first being Transit That Works. And this is all about making sure we save our transit system. So that's CTA, Metra, PACE, because it is facing there's a transit fiscal cliff. So essentially money is that it depends on is going to be running out by the end of 2025. So we need to figure out a way to make sure there's financial stability, and we also want to improve our system so it's a more useful system for more people and can connect people to where they need to go. So we'll be spending some time digging into that. And then our other campaign is Safe Streets for All. So this is about making our roadway network safer for all modes, but really we're focused on walking and biking. So how do we make sure that we have a network of bike lanes and a network of sidewalks and trails so that people can safely get from point A to point B? And how do we slow our cars down? And then finally, another campaign that we're going to touch on is it's our Clean and Equitable Transportation campaign. And this is all about lowering greenhouse gas emissions through the transportation sector. Now so let's focus on transit first. And we actually have some we wanted to start off again with another breakout to get you kind of thinking about your own transit experiences. So in your groups, I think you'll be in a group of three or 4. We'd love for you to chat about your use of transit. Do you use the bus or train? Why or why not? And it's okay whether you use it or not, because again, we know we all live in different areas. Sometimes the bus or train is just not an option in some areas, but sometimes it's a great option. So, but we want to hear about like what is your experience? And then share one positive and one negative experience you've had on transit. And if you can share a local experience, that's great. But if not, you can think worldwide. We'll give you all 4 minutes in your breakout group. So if you can spend, so at 3 minutes, we'll give you a 60-minute or 1-minute warning that the breakout groups will be closing. So just again, stay in the breakout group until the rooms close automatically. And Julia, again, learned a little bit more about how others are getting around in other parts of the region. All right, Julia, do you want to take it from here?
Yes. All righty. So we're gonna now dive into the issue overviews for our broad Transit That Works campaign that encompasses 2 major priority areas. So one, which is really our top priority, our most pressing issue that there's a lot at stake around is saving transit. So our regional public transit system is facing a funding crisis, which will result in massive service cuts unless we intervene. So now is the time to get involved in this issue for sure. And then transforming transit, that's more to do with the experience of taking the bus day in and day out, as well as the return to pre-pandemic service levels and investing in operations and operators. So getting into the solutions, here's what we need. We need to save our regional transit system from really a really scary future. We need a new dedicated revenue stream for the regional transit system, as well as governance reform. And so I'm going to get into what that looks like and what that really means in a little while here. But the solutions we're looking for with regards to transforming transit include, again, more funding. Money is key to everything, right? More funding for operations as well as transit workers to make sure that service is more reliable and a safer experience for everyone. And we are also advocating for bus priority infrastructure that will help speed up Chicago's buses, but also our region's buses, right? PACE as well, to make them more reliable and provide higher quality service. So we're going to turn back to Mentimeter now for a brief moment before diving in further to this content. So I'll drop in the chat again the link and the room code, but if you have it up still, you should be able to just reload it.
And the question we have for you is, what do you think the impact would be if public transit service was cut in half in our region? And if, like, you can add as much here as you'd like, but if you have some adjectives, some nouns, some words that you could throw up, we're going to be building another word cloud.
Yeah.
All right.
Rage. That really struck me as one of the first.
Cut off. Yes.
More inequity, traffic, pollution, more pollution.
Unhealthy, frustration, crashes for sure. Wider streets for cars. Yeah, that could very well happen.
The snowballing effect, absolutely. Whoever entered that, you hit the nail on the head. We'll talk about exactly that in just a bit. Yeah, low-income folks wouldn't be able to access work opportunities, absolutely. So much pavement, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I think you all really recognize the stakes here, right? It's a really scary thought of what could happen.
Yeah.
And why we need to be organizing.
Right. All right. So now we'll move on to our next question here. So a more hopeful question. If you all had a magic wand, what is the #1 change you would make to improve our regional transit system? What would you like to see? Like how could the transit system better work for you? Again, no cars. More service, yes.
Oh, I see BRT, so that stands for Bus Rapid Transit. We'll be talking about that soon too. Accessibility, absolutely. Protected bike lanes, yes. Free transit, absolutely.
Parking bans, equity, dedicated bus lanes. That's, yeah, again, the BRT idea it's possible in both city environment and suburban environment. Oh, free transit is getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Expand the train network, better bus service.
Simplified fare system.
Yes.
Yeah. A
Oh,
bit complicated.
you are speaking our language.
On time,
Mhm.
clean trains, better bus service. Yeah, no, great ideas. All right. Well, let's bring us back to our PowerPoint. There it is.
So we don't have a magic wand, unfortunately, but what we do have is people power, issue expertise, lobbyists, you all. we have quite a bit at our disposal, so it's not hopeless. And so just we wanted to dive a little bit more into kind of the existing structures and how we're advocating to change them to really save our transit system and make it robust and thriving moving forward. So you may be familiar, we have our Regional Transportation Authority, and under that we have the CTA, the Chicago Transportation Authority, Pace Suburban Bus, and Metro Metropolitan Rail. So the RTA is the body that oversees those three agencies and passes through federal and state funds to the agencies. And so this structure and the way it's sort of governed, the funding mechanisms, all of this has not really changed at all since it was created in the 80s. And obviously our communities, our needs, our transportation patterns, all of these things have changed since then. So we know that this governance structure is a bit outdated, and we'll get into just at a high level more what we want to see from it soon. So back to the fiscal cliff issue. So we, as well as transit systems around the country, are facing this financial crisis. And this is in large part due to the impact of COVID. So because of the way that transit funding has been structured historically, both here in our region and in transit agencies around the country, there's been an over-reliance in funding depending on riders paying their fares. And so obviously when COVID hit, a lot fewer people were taking the train, and that really impacted how much funding was available for our transit systems to operate. And so you all may have even participated in some of our federal level advocacy and action alerts when we were advocating for federal relief packages, of which there were 3 back in 2020, 2021. But that federal relief is going to be running out by 2026. And so once that does run out, we will face a massive budget fiscal cliff. And so we need to intervene by that time to ensure that there is funding to continue transit operations as robustly as possible. So this chart you'll see here, you'll see in the blue bars, that indicates state and regional funding for transit over the years. So that looks like things like a sales tax or motor fuel tax. Then the green of the bars, that looks like, that refers to system generated revenues. So those are, again, the riders, you all paying your fares. Then we have in white, starting in 2020, that's the federal aid packages that came in to step in and close that budget gap. But as you'll see then, the red is the budget cap that will begin and will only continue to grow as, the cost of everything and inflation continues to rise over the years. So that's why we need to introduce a new revenue stream to help prevent this. We won't be able to cut service in order to prevent this budget gap from impacting our transit system, because whoever mentioned the vicious cycle in the word cloud, that's exactly it. So just imagine the impact of 4 out of 8 CTA train lines being cut, or 6 out of 11 metro trains being cut. It would just have really significant impacts. And as we've now seen how transit is funding, we know that the less service you provide, the fewer people will ride transit, right? Which means the less rider fares and kind of system generated revenue there'll be, which means they'll be able to provide, will not be able to provide the same level of service anymore. And so it'll create this vicious cycle, this death spiral, is what advocates are calling it, that really will not lead to anything we want to see. So cutting service is not our way out of this. We also know that transit is uniquely positioned to advance broad goals for the state of Illinois. So by investing in transit, you really get to the heart of a lot of policy issues and priorities for our state. We know that a stronger transit system will enable more equitable access to jobs, food, opportunities for everyone. We know that strong transit is a powerful tool for attracting investment and boosting the economic health of our region. And of course, we all saw in our word cloud at the beginning, and just now too, that meaningful transit investment will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate climate change, which all of these are stated priorities for our state and the administration. So what happens if you all, our superheroes, don't get involved? Well, the stakes are high, as we've discussed, right? We're going to need to raise or create a new tax. So that's a heavy lift, obviously, politically. But we also know we need to be really persuasive because the stakes are too high to ignore. So we just wanted to equip you with just 2 talking points here as perhaps you begin to talk about this issue with your networks, with elected officials. Firstly, that transit across the Chicago region returns $3.86 in value for every dollar spent on transit. So this was calculated by the RTA actually last year when they did some modeling in terms of investment into both actually capital and operation dollars, and then how that trickles out and returns. I'm not a data expert, so I can refer you to where in the RTA strategic plan they talk about that if you're curious. And then, of course, we know that over 1 million people use our regional transit system on a daily basis. So just imagining the equity, economic, environmental impacts if 1 million additional cars clogged our streets every day. So let's see here. This is still me, Maggie, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. We kind of changed around some of the order here. So great. So when it comes to saving transit, this kind of policy changes, the solutions we seek, it's going to have to happen at the state level. So we are really focusing our attention and our pressure on the Illinois General Assembly. So that includes the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the Illinois General Assembly. The session runs, they're doing active kind of lawmaking January through May of every year. So bills are introduced by both senators and representatives in each house, and they typically recruit additional senators and representatives to sponsor bills. That makes a big impact. Bills must also pass through specific committees before being voted on in both chambers. And then, you know, this process, it's complex, right? It's not super accessible. We get into this more in our deep dive state activation training, which we have a recording of that we're going to share with you for folks who want to get more involved and learn more about, you know, the kind of the weeds of how this all gets passed. But ways that you all can participate are by just staying tuned for what are often last minute requests to help with things like witness slips, action alerts, meeting with elected officials, or even testifying at hearings. So it'll be really important to kind of stay tuned. The kind of work of the Illinois General Assembly really ramps up at the end. It's kind of loaded at the end, and often even through Memorial Day weekend, the end of the month, people are working round the clock trying to get bills passed. So just stay tuned, because there will be much more coming around that. And then, you know, that's a lot to digest, right? There's a lot at stake around saving transit and advocating for governance reform and funding at the state level. But bringing it back to the other part of the Transit That Works campaign, or transforming transit priorities, we wanted to bring it back to what we can be advocating for kind of on the ground in a more tangible way that will also impact our transit system regionally. So that is bus priority infrastructure, or bus rapid transit. So on this slide, you'll see there's a list of interventions, or kind of design, or street treatments. And so if a street has kind of these specifications and these interventions applied, all of them listed here, then that is what's known as gold standard BRT. But often transit agencies will kind of pick and choose and apply these different types of treatments depending on the context, funding, political will, and so on. So just to go through them quickly, we have dedicated and separated lanes. So of course that lets a bus stick to its schedule, right, and not get stuck behind single occupancy vehicles. You'll see an example of that on the left in Chicago. That's on Chicago Avenue, actually. BRT gold standard also increases frequency, so only having to wait 10 minutes or less for every bus. There's also raised platforms so that folks have a seamless entrance, depending on if you're in a wheelchair or with a carriage, from a platform directly onto the bus. That also helps a bus stick to its schedule, as well as off-board fare collection. That can look like a kiosk on those raised platforms where people are paying in advance. Just think of those times perhaps when you've been stuck behind somebody who's like searching for change or looking for their venture card, and it really does hold things up. And so also by taking that stress off of the operator, it lets them have more kind of streamlined experience as well. And then there's also signal prioritization. This one's a bit more expensive as well, but that includes a technical upgrade to both the traffic light as well as the bus the bus itself, and allows an operator to either trigger or hold a green light so they can get through that intersection and again stick to its schedule, as well as fewer stops, so that this can really be sort of an express service, kind of a train on the street, if you will. And so all of these interventions, we definitely want to flag, this is not just for Chicago. PACE is doing incredible stuff with all of these types of interventions with their PACE Pulse project. So you may have ridden PACE Pulse Milwaukee or Dempster. They're also working on PACE Pulse South Halsted on the south side, as well as starting up the plans for PACE Pulse on Cermak, going from the end of the Pink Line through to North Riverside. I think someone on the call is calling in from North Riverside tonight. So there's plenty of ways to get involved no matter where you are in the region on this. And specifically in Chicago, we also wanted to flag that there was the Better Streets for Buses plan that was published at the end of last year by CTA and CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation, since they are the ones who control the streets, right? So it's kind of a joint effort to implement many of these things between those two agencies. So that plan we'll share in our follow-up too, and it includes a network of proposed 17 corridors throughout Chicago, where they analyzed and suggest this type of infrastructure. So now this year, there'll be some opportunities to really advocate for the implementation of that on a few corridors to start with, and then hopefully many more in the future. So we'll keep you posted on ways to get involved in that as well. All right, so I think we've made it clear, hopefully, that we really need our superheroes to show up this year in 2024. And honestly, this fight may well continue into the years to come as well. So we will be fighting for saving transit, new funding revenue, better governance structures. So just to I think I haven't really clarified what that looks like. Just imagine, an integrated transit system where you can pay with one fare, where the Metra schedule is actually aligned with the pay schedule, right? And a system that kind of utilizes all of these different agencies for folks who are really going all the way around our region, which is more and more common. So, and then transforming transit, of course, our transit priority streets and restoring service to pre-pandemic levels. So we will share that deep dive recording where we kind of get more into the weeds here. But yes, Ralph, I see we have a question.
Yeah, in terms of better governance structures, what are the options for realigning RTA and all of its, components?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. So we and other advocates fought for our regional, what's known as a metropolitan planning organization. So that's a kind of pseudo governmental body. There are ones established in every kind of densely populated region to work on transportation resources to be kind of the pass through for federal funding. So anyways, ours is called the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP for short. So us and other advocates, we knew that this crisis was coming. And so we asked the Illinois General Assembly to kind of mandate CMAP, this group, to do an analysis and propose options for additional revenue as well as new governance structures. And so they put out this report called the Plan of Action for Regional Transit, or PART for short. We'll share the link to that, but it's a really dense document and report that they gave to the Illinois General Assembly at the end of 2023, and it's available for anyone to read. And so they did a really broad national analysis of the way that other transit agencies around the country are governed. So they have some great examples in that document that I can follow up with and share. But Ralph, just to give you a few examples, they suggest creating one or two boards that would govern the entirety of PACE, Metra, and CTA, and kind of consolidating how the what is the word? The appointed board members from specific counties are kind of distributed, and what that looks like in terms of kind of population representation. So I'll drop the memo in the chat, but I would encourage you all, if you're curious to learn more, first of all, check out our recording from the deep dive training. And second of all, you can take a look at these memos and the PART report as well that I'll share. I hope that helps clarify things.
And I do want to add, in some cases, we don't know all the details of what these future bills will look like. And what we're hearing right now is they're waiting until after March 19th, election day. And we'll find out more after that. So, hopefully in April, and at the latest sometime in May, we'll get more details on what they're trying to propose in the bills.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Maggie. Yeah, we find ourselves in an interesting time around the election. So lots of strategies with all this stuff, right? Any other questions? We know that was a lot of information. And again, we'll be following up. I dropped the link in the chat to the homepage for the PART report. So feel free to check that out, but we'll follow up with more details too. So we're going to go ahead and give you all a 2-minute stretch break. feel free to grab some water or do what you got to do. And then we'll get back to talk about our other campaigns.
And try, if you can all be back at, let's say 7:19, if you can look on your phones. So we'll, see you back in 2 minutes. Started going into, right, thanks, Julia. Getting into our next campaign. Safe Streets for All. So this is more of a focus on walking and biking and as well as accessing transit. And we're going to start off again with doing a little bit of a breakout groups, so you can share more about your story, think more about, why is this important to you. So, when it comes to walking and biking, or rolling, we've all, as Julia said before, transportation impacts everyone. And I'm sure, like, if you are in our region, you've all had some type of frustrating experience when it comes to getting around. And so one of the questions we wanted you to chat about with those in your breakout is, have you ever felt unsafe or frustrated while walking or biking in our region, and in what ways? So, share your experiences. And then just thinking also about, how do people who can't drive or don't drive get around your community? Because really, over a third of our population, thinking about youth, older adults, people with disabilities, people that don't have a car, what do they do? What options do they have in your community? And a movement building tip for you all, that as we were talking about in the everyday advocacy section, that just, listening to people's stories, building those connections can go a long way. And it's a powerful advocacy tool, and a way to just, kind of relate to others, or just hear what's going on and hearing other perspectives. So we again highly recommend chatting with others about their transportation experience, because it's something, everyone has a personal connection and story about. So with that, we're going to put you in breakout groups again. We'll do this for 4 minutes. And again, at the 3-minute mark, you get a warning that there's one more minute left. And then we'll come back and dig into our Safe Streets for All campaign. So we'll see you in 4 minutes. Looks like everyone's in. Thanks. Yeah. Julia, with well, we hope you had some more fruitful discussions and just got to know a little bit more about, what's motivating people, what's what people want to see changed. So let's dig into Safe Streets for All. So again, just to give you a bit of an overview of, what's behind this campaign. It's essentially that our streets for decades have been designed to move cars as quickly as possible, and as a result, they're deadly. Our streets are not safe in their current form. And we have some statistics here from IDOT from 2021, and these are Illinois statistics, but every day in our state, 15 people walking or biking are injured. Every other day, a person is killed while walking or biking in Illinois, and 3 motorists are killed every day in Illinois, which is truly, like, all of these numbers, it's just unacceptable. Like, these deaths are preventable. A lot of it has to do with the way we design our roads, but you know, really, you may have, if you had checked the news from this past weekend, there have been a handful of deaths recently throughout our region of people walking and biking. So, and just a few more statistics for you also. Traffic violence and these traffic deaths really spiked during the pandemic. We saw, car traffic decreased, but suddenly we have wide open roads and people were speeding, and so we've seen a spike in those traffic deaths, and that trend has continued. And we're seeing that people of color, low-income people are more impacted by traffic violence. And again, these fatalities that we're seeing in our region, in our state and nationally, they are predictable in many cases and preventable. Again, a lot of it has to do with the way we design our roads, and the speeds that cars are traveling. So this infographic here is showing our field of vision is much larger when we're driving at slower speeds. So on the left, there's this image of someone driving at 50 miles per hour, what they see, versus driving at 30 or 40 miles per hour. And truly, you don't get a full picture of the road, and you're not necessarily seeing all of the vulnerable road users that we're sharing our streets with. And then just looking at speed and survival rates. So if a pedestrian is hit by a vehicle traveling at 20 miles per hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive. Whereas if a car is traveling at 40 miles per hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians survive. So there's, we can do things to our streets to slow things down and create a safer space for everyone, because we are in many cases all sharing the same space to get to where we need to go. So what we need to be designing our streets for slower speeds, narrower travel lanes, shorter crossing distances, so just making it a safer space to cross a busy road. And then creating dedicated space for people to walk, bike, or access transit. This photo on the right is showing a road diet. So a road going from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes with a turning lane in the middle. And then suddenly there's space for bike lanes. There's space for a pedestrian island with a crossing. And we're seeing this type of treatment popping up more and more around our region, and really a lot of the treatments, which I'll share here in a moment. So on the left here, this is, how we've typically designed our roads, where it's, 4 cars getting from point A to point B. There's a pedestrian there in the middle island wearing red pants and clearly not in a very safe or comfortable spot. But there are tools we have that are at our disposal that we can be investing in to again slow cars down and create safer, more comfortable spaces for everyone. In the upper left, that's an example from the village of Brookfield. It's a bicycle boulevard. In the upper right, that's a pedestrian island. Just again creating that shorter crossing distance for people walking or biking across the road. The bottom left, that's in the village of Niles. That's a road diet with a protected bike lane. And on the right, that's a protected bike lane in the city of Evanston. And again, we've been seeing over the last 5 years, so many more of these types of treatments being built because there's more demand for it, which is exciting. But, the advocacy is necessary to really help us get to where we want to be going. So we do have one more Mentimeter question for you. I think our last one of the night. So if you can pull out your phones again or open your browser. We're curious because, we do know that all these new treatments are popping up. Do you have a favorite treatment or improvement that you've seen in our region over the last year? And it could be something like that, those refuge islands, protected bike lanes, so something kind of generic, or maybe you have a specific project in mind. You're like, oh, I love this curb bump out on my intersection, or oh, there, a sidewalk bump out, or I love the protected bike lanes or the contraflow lane on, you know, Augusta or whatever street you're thinking of, like see Milwaukee Avenue. Yeah, we're just curious to know, like, what are you all seeing out there and what do you like?
And we know that you have to deal with the character limit for these boxes, so feel free
Yes.
to shorten as you can, or on it. Yeah, I'll leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like protected bike lanes are the biggest here, but I see the painted bike and bus lane, which, yes, the
Yeah.
green bike lane or the red bus lane, very exciting to see. It makes our streets more colorful. It's nice. Augusta speed reduction, Sawyer Avenue speed humps, streetscape focus. Yes, that does make, that just makes, actually, like, adding streetscape can really help slow things down and just make a more pleasant space for everyone. Armitage sidewalk bump out, great. New no turn on red. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
great.
the
Oh, go
street
ahead.
redesign on Belmont, shout out to that one too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, more roundabouts in the burbs.
Oh, interesting.
Cool. Well, no, these are great examples and ideas. So again, there's hope. We're seeing things change, which is very exciting. But you know, again, let's, you know, we can all work together to keep this momentum going and see even more change in the future. So okay, so these past campaigns. Oh, Julia, do you want to share first about Chicago?
Sure thing. Yeah. So we wanted to highlight how kind of the recipe for success for how we've been able to win all of these great new projects and infrastructure changes you all just listed in the Mentimeter. So it takes a variety of factors to see this change to our streets. So first and foremost, it all comes back to funding again. I know I'm a broken record here, but there's this capital funding pot of money that was introduced 2 years ago called the Chicago Works Capital Plan. So in that pot of money, there were specific dedicated line items and amounts dedicated specifically to protected bike lanes. So that has really infused the Chicago Department of Transportation with the resources needed to actually build these things, right? But also it's taken support of aldermen. We have some really amazing champions for safe streets, such as Alderman Daniel Espada is just one example, because here we'll see in the photos 2 projects in his ward that he was really massively supportive of. So we need that political leadership, absolutely. We also need the people power. So again, these 2 projects here, the top on Milwaukee Avenue and the bottom on Logan Boulevard and Western Avenue, there are a lot of our supporters and like-minded folks living in those areas. So they were speaking up and making their voices heard. So they had the people power, the funding, the support of aldermen. And unfortunately, there were also some high-profile fatalities on that corridor too, which, you know, heartbreakingly sometimes does just bring more attention to a project. We're not saying that's a part of the recipe for success, but in this case, that was a factor as well. And so, you know, it's not just about just one of those things. We really need all of that coordinated effort. And the final thing I wanted to flag as well is making sure that local businesses have their concerns and voices heard, because as the Milwaukee Avenue example, you know, there was some pushback from local businesses concerned about the loss of parking. But if you're able to take the time and actually share with businesses like, hey, you know, I actually biked here, and reach out and listen to their concerns, show them the proof that, hey, bike lanes actually help bring in business. They don't drive away business. It goes a long way. So that's been some of the past successful campaigns in the city.
And then at the state level, again, we were hearing from a lot of communities, this was about 5 years ago, that, suburban communities were looking, they would love to add a bike lane or improve their sidewalks network, but they didn't have the funding for it. And back in 2019, we hired lobbyists, we hired campaign managers, and we had a very targeted campaign to create dedicated state funding for walking, biking, and trails. And we were successful. We were able to secure $50 million in dedicated annual funding for active transportation. And this was 5 years ago, and I think we're just starting to see some projects being built from this money, which again is annual funding. So, we'll see hopefully more and more projects continued throughout in the future as well. But what helped us succeed with this campaign and others is we have a tool where we can send out action alerts, and they've been a really great tool for connecting all of you directly with your elected officials, or whoever is the I don't know, the person that can make the change happen. Where an action alert is where you would fill out your contact information there on the left, and on the bottom there's a pre-populated text that you just click send email, and then that email for a given campaign is set directly to the relevant decision makers. And just as our street team advocates, we wanted to give you a little tip. And one is to, if you can, in that email text, you can add, anything you want. And we highly recommend in the very beginning of that message, personalizing it and just adding a sentence or two just to make your message stand out. And it's we have heard directly from elected officials that these action alerts have really impacted them, and they're like, wow, we really heard from a lot of folks about this issue. So we'll be sure to let you all know when there are action alerts out there that are relevant to all of you. And we're actually going to be creating a Google group. We'll talk about that in a moment to make sure we get these action alerts out to you. And we just so you have a heads up of some upcoming initiatives, both for Chicago and the suburbs. So in the suburbs, we have a program called Bike Walk Everytown, and we're planning to gather people later this summer for an in-person summit to just connect more suburban advocates together. But we have a lot of resources. This program is also about helping you build your own local campaign if you wanted to create your own bike walk group in your community, and then also just kind of giving you some tools on like what's a recipe for success in the suburbs, or what are some essentials that you need to kind of advocate and help your community actually implement all of these ideas. And then second, Bike Month is coming up in May, National Bike Month, and we'll be sending out resources to help you prepare that if you wanted to organize anything in your community, and that goes for both the suburbs and Chicago. And then finally, there are opportunities to provide input, and this goes for everyone, on the state active transportation plan, as well as some county safety action plans. So these plans are they're always looking for public input, and they're looking for ideas of where are the issues, what do they need to be aware of, what needs to be addressed in the future related to active transportation. So we'll be sure to let you know if there are opportunities to share your thoughts with either at the state level or county level. And then Julia in Chicago.
Yeah, so we'll be focusing on trying to lower the city speed limit. And actually there's a potential hearing coming up with city council around that. So stay tuned for more updates on that to come. And we'll be fighting to make sure this Chicago Works Capital Fund, that funding package is renewed at the end of this year. So we have that dedicated funding. We also want to make a bike month a big splash. So stay tuned for opportunities to get involved. That again, that's May, and that's also National Bike Month too. So then our colleagues Jim and Alex are going to be hosting more deep dive trainings around how to get involved with our Safe Streets for All work in April. So those are still TBD on scheduling, but sometime in April.
All right, so we also briefly wanted to mention one other campaign of ours. It's a newer campaign, our Clean and Equitable Transportation campaign. The issue here is that the transportation sector is the largest producer of greenhouse gas emissions in our state, about 33%. So, you know, there are numerous impacts, negative impacts on regionally, statewide, related to our air quality, related to public health, chronic disease, inequalities, you name it. So, you know, what do we need to do? And that what we need is we need to be increasing more other mobility options, rather, you know, instead of always using our federal and state money to be expanding roads, thinking about how can we invest in other transportation options, walking, biking, transit, as well as electrification, to build safer communities. So we are working with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, and we're working on putting together a package of laws to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation. We've taken inspiration from other states like Minnesota and Colorado who have laws like this. Again, we'll know more about really the specifics of this bill in April and May, but for now we do in the deep dive recording that we have from February, there are a lot more details about this initiative. So again, we'll make sure to get that out to you. But we're very excited about this because this, you know, affects all modes, and we think it could have a big impact as we've seen in other states. We, you know, we're nearing the home stretch here, but we're curious, like if you could share in the chat if there's anything new that you learned here today in the training. We'd love to know, and then also if you do have any questions that have bubbled up, feel free to share those in the chat as well, and we'll I guess continue on with a few more slides, but please, you know, add thoughts about what you've learned and any questions you have in the chat, and we'll check on those in a little bit. But before we wrap up, we wanted to really talk about how you can get involved in all of these campaigns. And I referenced this earlier, but we are going to be adding all of you to a Google group, a Street Team Google group. So it's an email list where we'll make sure to alert you to opportunities related to action alerts, witness slips, elected official meetings, public hearings, you know, related to the bills that we're focused on, but then also perhaps some other opportunities related to other big regionally significant projects. Julia and I host bi-monthly advocacy calls. So our next suburban advocacy call is in April. We host that with Ride Illinois, which they're our state bicycle advocacy group. And Julia, is the next Chicago call in May?
Yeah, so we unfortunately we had to cancel the one that was scheduled for this past Friday. So we're actually going to be rescheduling that sooner. So but in general, yeah, they happen every other month at the lunch hour on Fridays. So just stay tuned. We'll update you. Sorry, we don't have a clear date yet.
Yeah, no problem. And we record all of these calls as well. So we know that lunch hour doesn't work for everyone. But we record them, we send out resources afterwards, so you can always stay up to date that way, but they are casual calls. And they're just a way to hear updates about what's going on either in the Chicago or the suburbs, connect with others, ask questions, share what's going on in your community. So they're just a great way to tap in, whether you're listening live or listening to a recording. And then we're also we'll be hosting a series of deep dive trainings that in February we hosted a training on our state policy work, and we'll send that recording. And as Julia mentioned, in April we're planning a deep dive for Chicago advocates, and we're also this isn't necessarily a deep dive, but it's a casual conversation with one of our lobbyists, John Amdor. We're going to be hosting that at the end of this month. So if you're curious about hearing about the ins and outs of, what it's like to be working in Springfield as a lobbyist, kind of behind the scenes of like, how does a bill become a law, and more details about our priority bills. We'd love to have you join for that. That'll be in the evening on March 26th. And then, of course, don't forget about all of those everyday advocacy actions you can take. We will, in our follow-up email, we'll send you a document we have that lists all sorts of everyday advocacy actions you can take, as well as links and things other street team advocates have shared in some of the other trainings. And then overall, just share with your network, share all of these ideas, action alerts, meetings, invite people to join us and be part of the movement. And I see Julia's putting some information in the chat about some of the upcoming events, and I see there's a question about what is our lobbyist name. That's John Amdor. Is the lobbyist who will be joining us for the behind the scenes stories in Springfield.
I also just want to flag, you guys, it's so wonderful hearing everything that you all have been learning tonight, even though some of the, statistics and reality around transit funding are grim. It's still exciting to see that, this information is useful and you all enjoyed connecting with one another, and we really value your input and feedback. So, before we let you go, we'll have a feedback form and a commitment form that we'll discuss. But I also just wanted to respond to a question. Isabel asked, one of our aldermen believes speed bumps will solve speeding. Are there any studies on how productive speed humps are? Maggie, do you know about that, or is that something we should follow up on?
Yeah, gosh, I'm trying to remember. I have looked into this because I know speed humps can be controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're well received, sometimes not so much. I do know you need to have, like, there are newer designs of speed humps that are more comfortable for bicyclists, for example. And if you're going to get those speed humps in, you want to make sure there's multiple speed humps, because just having one won't do anything. You're going to want multiple humps. And I think there have been some studies that have shown they do impact speeding to some extent. But because of their controversial nature, what we have sometimes seen is they get installed and then enough people don't like them that they get ripped out soon after, and it's often becomes a waste of resources. So there are also other traffic calming measures as well, but I would say just like statistic wise, it does reduce speeding. But I can see if I can find any more resources on that for whoever asked that.
All right.
Any other questions or
I'm not seeing any, but
all right. Well, just a recap of some future trainings that we have coming up. Again, we have a recording available for the state legislation activation, and that's really we would love to get people involved in actually meeting with state elected officials. So if you're kind of interested in that or just want to know more about these bills, highly recommend checking out that recording. Safe Streets for All again, that will be in April, and we'll let you know when that training is scheduled, and that's specifically for Chicago advocates. And then for suburban advocates, we're going to be organizing a Bike Walk Everytown Summit in the summer.
And we're getting a question from Brad. We'll get an email with a list of these opportunities to get more involved when you create that Google group, right? Absolutely. Nailed it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll send out a follow-up email tomorrow with a lot of resources, and we'll add you to those Google groups. And yeah, and we're always reachable, Julia and I, by email. So you're always welcome to get in touch. But these are a handful of other ways that you can stay involved with our organization. So we have an advocacy email list. If you go to activetrans.org/advocacy sign up, we highly recommend making sure you're on that list, though probably a lot of you are if you knew about this training. We also have a lot of volunteer opportunities or events that you can actually participate in. So we've got Bike the Drive, either participating or volunteering for. We're looking for anyone, whatever your interest is, getting involved with Bike Month, Bike to Work Challenge, and our upcoming Movers and Shakers Ball. We're on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter or X, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So please follow us. And again, we'd love for you to become an Active Trans member for $35. So there's our link to our membership page. And sorry, I'm having trouble. There we go. So again, a little bit of a recap on upcoming events. So March 26th, that's a Tuesday. I believe it's 6 to 7. That's when we'll have our virtual chat with our lobbyist, John Amdor. April 4th is when we have our Movers and Shakers Ball in Chicago. Julia, do you know where it is this
Yeah,
year?
it's at the Chicago History Museum, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun venue.
Yeah. April 10th, which is, I believe, a Wednesday, we're going to have a street team social. So just open to you and the others that we've trained. And we'll actually be able to offer, I think, a free drink to the first 40 people that show up. So likely if you do show up, you'll get a free drink.
And sorry, just to flag, that will be at Revolution Brewing and Kedzie in Chicago.
Yeah.
So hope those around the region can make it out too.
Yes. And then April again, to be determined on the exact date for our Chicago Safe Streets Deep Dive. May 9th, there's a transportation lobby day that you can either attend in Springfield, or I believe there are some virtual options to talk about transportation with your state leaders and lawmakers. May is Bike Month, the Bike to Work Challenge, and then summer, our suburban advocacy program, Bike Walk Everytown. We're going to be holding a summit September 1st, Bike the Drive. So save the dates, Labor Day weekend. And then finally, end of the year, December 3rd, we have our annual member party. We will again follow up with all of these dates. We'll probably send you some calendar invites to some of the street team specific events. Right. Julia, do you want to?
Yeah, so we know we're kind of right on the clock here, just a few minutes left. We've thrown so much at you, but we just have one final ask for this evening. If you could please fill out our commitment form. You can either use the QR code there, and I am dropping the link in the chat right now. This will just give us a way to follow up. Oh, I mistyped that link. I'm so sorry. Okay. It will give us a chance to follow up with you all in terms of how you all want to stay engaged and involved. There's an opportunity to share feedback as well. And it also helps us track who actually came to the training. So please do fill that out. And then we will let you go. But also if folks do have questions, feel free to drop them while we're still together too, but please do fill out this commitment form. There we go. That should work. Let's see. Yes, okay. And really, thanks so much for spending these 2 hours with us. We know there's so much going on, and we're really grateful to have you all involved. So.
And we like to show this this image of a lone yellow tulip. You know, really, it's disrupting a pattern. Advocacy can make all the difference, and you know, suddenly we'll see that utopia that you all brainstormed in the beginning of where everyone has access to safe walking, biking, and transit.
So be the lone tulip. Be
Yes.
the lone tulip.
And there are our email addresses if you'd like to reach out. You should have our email addresses because I believe you've probably gotten a handful of emails from us already. But we do have these Street Team Advocate buttons that we want to get to all of you. If you are, you know, planning to be downtown Chicago or attending one of our events in person, we'll try to bring these with us and just let us know that you're like, I attended a street team training, and we'll make sure to get you a button. I have one on, I keep one on my backpack, and it's just it's another nice conversation starter. But for those of you, you know, if you're not really necessarily going to be downtown anytime soon, we can look into finding another way to get you the button, like mailing it to you. So just let us know. But yeah, we appreciate you all being here today. And yeah, excited to get you involved in the future. And working together to fight for better walking, biking, and transit.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie and Julia.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Have a lovely night.
Bye.
Yeah,
You too.
all.
Great job.
Thanks,
Thank
Ralph.
you.
Thanks for joining.
All right.
Thanks, Lorinda. All right, I'll pause the recording.